I personally feel responsible in a way that my colleagues don't. They have these ideas like, oh, I'm a physicist. It's just fun. It's really interesting. It's a bunch of puzzles. My feeling is you doomed the human race and you don't feel responsible for building a lifeboat, for saving us, for like, what kind of a sociopath are you? Like, I'm not even a physicist, Joe, and I feel responsible. And this gets back, to some weird stuff about.
So they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the equations they're working on. They're thinking about the puzzles they're trying to solve.
It's fun. I get to play. It's, universe this and puzzle that. And it's just like, please, it's not.
Do they not think of a way to leave the Earth because they don't think it's a surmountable?
Correct. They live in space-time. They've crawled into the map, the prison built by Einstein, and they know that it's not right. Because there are these two singularities. There's this singularity at the beginning of time, which we call the Big Bang, assuming the time were one-dimensional. And it's part of something called the Friedman-Robertson-Walker space-time model. And there's another one at the bottom of the black hole called the Schwarzschild singularity. And the fact that space and time kink at these 2 points is an indication that we have something wrong to a mathematician or a physicist. It says your equations work pretty well right up into the point where there's some error that you have that you don't understand, and you have like a division by zero error. And if you could figure out your error, you don't know what sin you committed, but the way that you know you committed a sin is that you have a singularity. So they know that there's some successor theory. And they'll give lectures about space-time is doomed, and I'm going to talk about non-commutative geometry. But these are all ways of avoiding the fact that you haven't done your homework for 50 years, okay? So like there's some class that you're supposed to show up to and you haven't been in a long time. You don't want to show up and suddenly say, what? What's going on? That's what's happening. They're living inside of Einstein's model. So when you say something, they'll say, well, that's impossible because you can't go faster than the speed of light. And it's like, that's a space-time concept. That's an Einsteinian concept. You're not thinking post-Einsteinian. You're not thinking about recovering Einstein, or Einstein is what we would call an effective theory. You're thinking that you really live in space-time, so you know what you can do. And then you fold your arms and say, well, that's impossible. It's like, no, you have a limited map. You think that, Greenland is the same size as South America.
Okay, then as far as its application, what could you imagine would be a way that someone could actually apply these laws, these theories?
So imagine for the moment, again, this goes back to, let me put my Eric, the science person, doing his own theory, right? This is my thing that I tried to give you last time I was here. If we imagine that there are two spaces, and one of them is 14-dimensional, and one of them is 4-dimensional, and gravity connects them, that is the metric, the gadget. Think of a phonograph. The record is like the 14-dimensional world. And are you a Doors fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Doors 1, Break On Through to the Other Side is on the same side as Soul Kitchen. You don't hear Break On Through to the Other Side or Soul Kitchen simultaneously. They're both there on the record.
Right.
The phonograph, imagine you're doing it on a Victrola somehow. You're retro. You're listening to that record in 4 dimensions, but it's a 14-dimensional record. So you and I are playing back a 14-dimensional quantum world, but we're only playing back slices of it. So the illusion is that we're having a 4-dimensional conversation because the Victrola part, that phone, his master's voice, is the 4-dimensional thing. And what's the stylus? It's the metric. It's gravity. The stylus is pulling off different data that is simultaneously existing. So it's like the record is the multiverse, but you don't think of it in these terms. You don't freak out and say, oh my God, I'm holding the multiverse because Light My Fire is somewhat adjacent to Soul Kitchen. That is my structure. That's what I believe is true. And we're having the discussion as if it's only the phonograph, the Victrola part. Mm-hmm. If you could then go to the record, you don't have to scratch your way back. You can do these weird moves where you can alight the stylus in different places. and shrink things and grow things and change the angles and all this stuff. And you have engineering possibilities. Like I will say what I believe the internal properties of the particles that we have yet to find, the dark matter, if you will, are. I will tell you places that I believe the standard model is wrong. And I'm happy to go down on the ship and move on with my life if I'm wrong. But I can't. I've been 40 years trying to have this conversation with a competent person. And every excuse under the sun is used to avoid talking about what I'm saying.